everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Heather with Rose Hill Paper Cottage, and this is a guest design team project for Raindrop Lila. And today I'm going to be making a secret pocket tag. So if you want to join me, you can grab some supplies and I'll kind of talk you through them. I am using her digitals called Peony Love Polaroids, and they are so pretty. She has lots of Polaroids to choose from. I just really just love these peonies. They're so pretty. And then I just have a basic, ledger page. This is, I believe, 9 by 14.5 inches, something like that. You can also stitch together or glue together, a couple of pages just to get that length. You may not even need something that's that long, you just have to play around with, whatever supplies that you have. So I'm just going to tear out this one single Polaroid that I'll be using for today's project. And I will also be using vintage photo. I'll bring out the antique linen. I'm trying to remember if I actually used it, but you'll see me as I go. I don't really have any kind of idea as far as, how shabby or distressed or anything that I want this tag to be. So I'm just kind of just going with the flow, and, we'll watch it evolve. So here I'm just kind of gently, so I do use the antique linen. I'm just gently kind of taking away a little bit of the white edge that when you tear paper or cut paper, there's always that white core that's inside. And so I'm just kind of, toning that down a little bit and then following up with some vintage photo. These would look lovely printed out on actual photo paper. I used, I think, a 28-pound paper. So a little bit thicker, than a copy paper, a little bit, a brighter, type white. And I'm just, kind of grunging it up a little bit. Like this picture has been looked at and held a lot. Kind of creating a story with it in a way, that it wasn't just, brand new. So I'm adding a little bit of distress tape, which I used alcohol inks with to create. I just love that little, spot of interest that it's creating there. So I like that little rough edge at the top, and so that's what I've decided to be, the top. And then facing towards me. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create the secret pocket. And I'm guessing here. I don't want to go too much wider than the actual photo. If you play around with this, you can, probably make it smaller and everything. It'll make more sense as I go, but I just felt like this was a decent size, pocket. It blended in well with the overall tag, and so therefore it's kind of like a little secret, even though it's kind of in the open. So I fold that first, and then I fold the paper back on itself. And then that's actually right there is where the image is going to be. So I have a tab at the bottom, and I didn't measure anything, and I just happened to have, got that right to where I wasn't going to bend on the tab. So you may want to measure if you have a tab or something like that, because it wouldn't have really worked, because that tab would have, prevented me from folding it correctly. But I just, it just worked out. So I'm just using some packaging paper, and I really am, leaning towards this kind of crumpled and worn look. And so I just crumple it up. That just removes any obvious lines in it or things like that where it might have been folded. And now I'm just aging the photo just a little bit more. So I'll trim this piece up so it's a little bit more of the size. And there you go. I've just removed a little bit of its, length. And then I'm going to glue the photo on top of it. And that'll help me to more determine the size that brown paper should be in the background. And I'm using Beacon's glue. It's just a small bottle that can, I think it can be found really at any craft store or dollar store. Mine's actually from the dollar store. So I'm kind of deciding like, what else should I add to this photo without taking away from it? And so I kind of look at like book pages and things like that, but I don't really end up liking them. I will end up going for more of like just a subtle embossed look. But sometimes, you just don't know what things are going to look like until you see them in place. And I haven't quite decided if I want to leave this flap here, the brown flap, if I want to glue it to the flap of the actual ledger or get rid of it. So for now, I'm just leaving it, and I'm just going to let that sit for a bit and see what I think about that as I continue on. So here I took some of the same like packaging paper and I just embossed it. And I just feel like that embossing, it adds interest and texture without overwhelming that photo. I really want that photo to really stand out. I want your eye to go directly to that picture of peonies. I just think it's beautiful and stunning. And so I kind of want things to fade into the background, yet I still want them to be, beautiful. In hindsight, I would have just embossed the back, packaging paper that's behind the photo, but I didn't know what direction I was going to go in. And really, I probably would have still layered over the top of it, but then I would have had that embossing around the whole frame, which I still could have. I could have, put some other pieces in and things like that, but I'll still tear on the sides and stuff. But in hindsight, I probably would have. I would have embossed the back piece and then put more embossed paper over the top. I end up kind of going with a layer upon layer kind of look. As you can see at the top there, I just folded like a little bit of it down, and I don't know, I just really like the way that looks with all the layering. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere this to the actual ledger piece. And then now I'm deciding if the bottom embossed piece will go underneath the photo or if it'll kind of, hang over the photo a little bit. And I believe I put it under the photo. And then I square it off on the bottom. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Because I'm folding up that bottom portion, I don't want to create too much bulk there. So when it folds up, and if I would have glued the paper there, it would have probably kind of bunched up a little bit. So just going, right to the edge where the fold is, I felt like worked out best. And I kind of distressed that fold a little bit. You'll see that I kind of like folded it a little bit, and I usually just kind of take my fingernails and just kind of like bend and fold and kind of scrape along the edges just slightly, just a little bit. So now I think I'm going to glue down this pocket. Now there's a couple things here. So if you'll notice, I'm putting the glue on the basically the right side of those numbers. I'm not going all the way to the bottom. I'm above the fold. And the reason for that is that fold flips up to the front. So I don't want that stitching to show there. And I also don't want it to catch on the paper clip that I'll end up eventually, closing it with, that you'll see. I just feel like that stitching will just create so much bulk. And honestly, since it's folded, you don't really need a pocket that extends the full length. You just need it to be where, between the fold and the other opposite edge. So now I'm determining a hole reinforcement that I'll use. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. And there's so many different ideas for, creating hole reinforcements that are interesting. The one I am using here is actually both a tea-dyed and a stamped hole reinforcer that I created. And then because I want it to be a little bit larger for this tag, because this tag is, quite substantial, really. I am backing it with a circle that I had punched out, and I'm putting it over the top, and then I'm inking it, and it just gives a little bit more of a border to the hole reinforcement. And I created these actually from old envelopes that have seen better days. I'll show like a nicer envelope, but I actually used kind of a little bit more of a grungy one. It's a perfect way to use up, just even little scraps of paper, or book pages, or, things that are, just the little bits at the end. Just another way to utilize them is you can cut a bunch of, holes using a small hole punch, and then, use those for reinforcements. You can also use, if you happen to have a We Are Memory Keepers reinforcement, but I just feel like that one's a little bit too small, I guess. I just feel like and it works, in some cases, but it's a little bit more narrow than just a normal hole reinforcement. So you can take white ones and do all kinds of decorative stuff. These are metallic ones. You can ink them, paint them, whatever you want to do. To create something, really, really fun. You can also just use, scraps of paper that you have, laying around, or embossed pieces, just to create like a little bit of a tab if you don't happen to have any hole reinforcements on hand or access to them. Really anything, can work. And a hole reinforcement really, is intended to be so that, whatever you put through it, whatever ribbon or twine or whatever, that it just doesn't tear your paper. But also it can serve a decorative purpose. So they can be any shape or style, that you want. So I'm just showing a little piece of embossed paper here. And again, I just chose more neutral because I just want the eye to just go straight to the photograph. So I'll get this all lined up. And I think it's a little off center. It's funny when it's upside down, it's like, no, it's not straight, but you should still be able to see, where it's at, even upside down. But I don't know. I couldn't until it was, the correct way around. So now I'll stitch the pocket. I'm just using a simple straight stitch, but, you could be all decorative here if you want to and use a decorative stitch. And what I do wrong here is I stitch one side correctly, but then the other side I go too far to the top. And the reason that that's important to not go all the way to the top of the pocket is so that you can actually access the pocket easier. So not going all the way to the top just helps the opening. So you'll see, and then I'll have to take out a few of the stitches. But, I don't mind. And I actually don't mind the little extra holes left by the needle, for me doing that. I just feel like it just adds to the overall, charm of the tag. So there, I just kind of run my fingernail across the holes just to kind of have the holes lay flat. I just think it looks nicer overall. So you'll see here, it's kind of snug there. So once I take out a few of the stitches here, the pocket will just, it just will ease up a bit so that, it's easier to stick things inside there. And I'm getting a drink of coffee. So that just shows you how it's all open. So there's tons of writing space. And the little pocket, which is really, really cute. And I'm still trying to determine on that flap if I like it, if I don't. I won't end up actually keeping it on there. I just feel like it throws the whole thing off. So I hadn't decided that yet. So here I've moved on to the bottom and I'm doing a little bit of inking. And a great thing is that you could actually create a secret spot, behind the photo, and also that like lower portion, which I'll kind of, point out when I'm gluing it. You could create little hidden little pockets behind those too. Whether it be for your own journaling or whether, you have like a pen pal, friend who journals as well. Those are just fun little things. But I also think this tag is just so pretty and would make such a nice, kind of gift in itself, for somebody who's, having a birthday or Mother's Day, something like that. I just think it's really, really pretty. You could stick like a gift card in there. I just think it's a fun little tag. So I'm going to do a reinforcement on the back. So when you punch your hole in, make sure you've opened up your pocket. Otherwise, you're going to end up punching through the whole entire thing. So you don't want to do that. So for the back here, I've kind of got like this, idea that I'll just kind of do the same thing on the back. And then I change my mind. This ledger has these pink lines and it's actually a really pretty pink. A lot of ledger does have pink, but because the blue lines are kind of pale, the pink kind of really stands out. You can't really tell on camera, but it does in person. And so I just kind of wanted to draw attention to the pink, in it. And so I just punch a hole out with this, using this embossed, pink and tea-dyed paper, and I'll use that as the whole reinforcement instead. And a good way to kind of like line it up so that it's, directly over, the hole is that you can kind of just let a little bit of light shine through, which you'll see me do, and then I'll make sure that it's completely lined up. I let a little bit of light shine through, and then I can find where the center of that hole would, should be. So I'm kind of looking at that flap again, and I just don't like the way that it looks when it's open. There's a lot of different things, though, that you could do with that flap. I mean, you could put the recipient's name there. You could put, some other, kind of quote or whatever. So there's lots of different things. I just didn't particularly like it for the way that I have this one laid out. And I'm just kind of roughing up the edges a little bit just to add to that overall kind of like shabby look. And the glue in the little bottle is art glitter glue. I just put it into like a little bottle. It just makes it easier to apply because the large refill bottle doesn't have any kind of nozzle with it that for the one I purchased. So I just have like a tinier little bottle, and it just comes out, fairly fine. So I'm just loving how this tag comes together. It's so cute. And I'm just kind of, just tearing things a bit, just kind of roughing them up a little bit more, just kind of making it look like, I guess the overall that it's been around for a while and it's been handled for a while. That whole kind of like aesthetic. And I mean, you could apply fabric. That would be really pretty, like, or some lace, to the back of it. I just kept everything, fairly simple. So I think that's called an owl clip. And they still sell those today. I just rusted them myself, but I'll end up actually going with just a plain paper clip again, because, again, I just want the eye to just kind of go. I want everything to kind of just be, elements in the back. And so I just put a simple paper clip on the bottom, and that's a rusted one as well. And I'm just, inking a little bit more, getting all my details, exactly how I want them. So for the top, when I go to put the ribbon through, I want to, add something decorative. So I'm going to add a button, and, there's lots of different buttons. All of these buttons came from Hobby Lobby. And they just have that little bit of sparkle, and they have, so many different ones that you can choose from. And so, I just kind of hold up, but different buttons to the tag. And I just, I go ahead and go for this particular, like, smaller one that I think has like a little pearl inside. So I'm going to measure the ribbon first, like kind of how much I'll need. And I'm just pointing out, when you have recycled sari silk, it's always, kind of stitched in place as they've joined the links of it together. So sometimes that can kind of hinder, what you're working on. And so you kind of have to work around it. So because my sari silk is thick and I need it to go through the button, which there's other ways. You don't have to have it go through the button. The button could also, you could use some elastic or something like that, or thread or whatever, and, thread it to your sari. But I'm actually going to thread it through. So I'm using kind of like a larger hold needle there. And I just trim the sari silk at an angle. But what I was going to say was I actually made my sari silk a little bit narrower. It's probably about an inch now, or maybe a little under an inch. And before it was probably a little bit wider than an inch, but that was too thick to go through the hole of the back of the button. So I just thread just a teeny tiny bit into this needle, and you'll see, I'll show it. I just need enough to grab onto it so that it makes it real easy to just kind of slip it through the back of this button. And there you go there. So I have it all the way through so that now I can create my bow. And then I just tie a pretty little bow. So I don't like how, exactly where, that seam is, where, what I was talking about, where sari silk is stitched, and then there's like, so I'm just going to readjust this so that it's not right there where it actually is with the button. Sometimes I like that, I like where they're stitched together, and it really adds to the overall, but not for this particular instance. I didn't care for it. So I'm just doing a little bit of adjustments before I go ahead and trim everything up. I just think it's so pretty. And see, there's just all these small little details, around this really pretty photo. And it just looks so cute. So now I'm going to determine if I want to, put any kind of, words or anything down at the bottom. And I believe a lot of these are like Tim Holtz, stickers. I'm not sure if they all are. I just can't remember. I've had all this, for quite a while, so I've forgotten. But, you can handwrite something here. It doesn't have to be, an actual sticker. This is just what I have on hand. And I'm just going to choose one of the phrases to use at the bottom of the Polaroid picture. And I chose a little bit of book page behind it. I just felt like it softened the black, background on the phrase. And then I just glue it down. I just love it. I think it just turned out so adorable. And again, I mean, you can do this with any kind of, image. It's really cute. You can use all kinds of different ledger. Ledger paper is just long, and it just works for this. But there's other ways that you could do it. You could actually just do the pocket and then it just, don't have that extra flat. But I just like all that extra detail that it adds, the subtleness of it all. I just think it's really neat. So now I'm going to show you, I'm just taking another image, and this is actually from her Peachy Pink vintage paper. And so I'm just going to show like how easy it is. You just take any image, could be your front image, add a few details, and then, you can do this exact same thing. So I'll kind of do like a little mock-up so you can kind of see, for if you choose to make one and you're looking for images, there's just so many different things that would work. I mean, any image would work. So I'm just trying to, kind of make everything so that it's easier to kind of see, the overall result of what it would look like just by kind of like trimming everything down and putting it in place. And this ends up being so cute too. I mean, Lydia just has so many amazing, images that you can choose. She has tons and tons of digitals to pick from. Beautiful ones. So look how cute that is. That's just so cute. So that's a totally different look. And I haven't even inked anything or, added anything else, just kind of throwing some things together. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this project. I hope you really loved it and that you'll create something too. And if you do, feel free to tag me on Instagram. You can ask me any questions below. I'm happy to help, but thanks for watching. Bye-bye.